Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. I'm delighted that my special guest today is the returning Edward Oakenfull. How are you, Edward?
I'm jolly good, thank you very much.
Well, you're dominating the headlines now, aren't you? Just hours
Not really.
ago, you dramatically resigned as treasurer of Advance UK. I launched you as this superstar on the show. Everybody wants you in the media now. And you've defected to restore Britain with a rallying cry of save our country. The timing obviously couldn't be more explosive. Was this a long planned midnight escape, or what was the catalyst?
I've been thinking about it for several weeks and deliberating about it, and just my loyalty to Ben Habib just kept me going, really, hoping things would change, but not really. And I made a tough decision and went with it yesterday.
And you say you were hoping things would change. What did you hope would change?
It's things have not been right for a while. I think the strategy has not been correct. I think there were one or two people at the very top of the party that seemed to make all the decisions. It wasn't a team effort. I think we needed more people deliberating and looking at strategy, especially after the debacle that was the Gorton and Denton by-election, which we talked at length about.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it was a humiliating defeat, and to your credit, within a nanosecond of the results, you were on the Andrew Eborn Show dissecting it. But you talk about the decision making. As we understood it, the college has been set up, this panel of experts, which Ben has been on the show several times talking about. It's a democratic party. That's what we do. Are you saying that's not true?
Well, from what I hear, the college only met a few times a year. The college is a brilliant idea, and I've met some incredible people on the college, super highly intelligent people. But almost when you get so many people together, I wonder how maybe the strongest voice succeeds in getting their point across. Some of the quieter ones, I don't know how efficient they were at getting their points across. And yeah, look, the college helps, but there were just one or two people at the very top of Advance that made all the decisions really, and I don't think the college made some great policy, and that was announced at our conference in London, or one particular policy, but the day-to-day running, the strategy of Advance, for me, not enough people were involved in that decision making.
Well, let's look at that specifically because they say that's what Ben said. He said effectively that the problem with reform is that, that the allocation was a Nigel Farage fan club. He makes the decisions. That's how it all works. Advance UK was going to be very different. It was going to be this wonderful democracy, if you like, getting this panel of experts. You're saying that's simply not true, and there are a few dominant characters. Who are those dominant characters, and what were their policies which overshone everybody else?
I'd rather not name names, but there's just a couple of people at the top that made all the decisions. I was the treasurer and more of a glorified bookkeeper, mate, in some respects. Never really asked for my opinion on anything, I just I was happy with that to get on with what I did, but. I'd like to have been involved more in decision making and strategy. The Gorton and Denton by-election was a debacle. That should have been a lot of soul searching for Advance UK. The senior people should have got together and thrashed this out and discussed strategy. Instead, we just ploughed on, and it was just more of the same. I mean, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expecting different outcomes. It's not going to happen. We needed to change course, and there was no even attempt to change course. It was just more of the same, I felt.
Yeah, as you say, it was a humiliating defeat, 154 votes for Nick Buckley, the local lad who seemed to have fairly sound policies. But for whatever reason, he was beaten by the monster raving loony party. To his credit, he came on the Andrew Eborn show with somebody from the monster raving loony party, the membership secretary, and he sort of made a joke about it, but at the same time recognizing there were real issues. Why did it fail in Gorton and Denton?
We got squeezed out. Excuse me, I've got a real frog in my throat this morning. Um, I think we just got really squeezed out by two big titans, the Green Party, Labour, well, three big parties, and Reform. I think people felt that voting for Advance, people had heard about us. I went door knocking. I talked to lots of constituents. People had heard about us. A lot of respect for Ben Habib. But they felt it was a wasted vote and they wanted Labour out or they were just going to vote for the Greens. The only alternative to get those parties out was to vote for Reform, and we just got completely squeezed out.
And
The,
it
the
wasn't it
thing
wasn't
from the
just
Treasurer's point of view, Andrew,
yeah,
as well, that I would like to add is we threw so much money at this
right.
for
How much did you
154 votes.
how much did you throw at it?
I can't say, but it was a lot of money. And again, that should have been one of the items that was discussed by senior people in advance afterwards. But it was nothing was discussed. And people, I was never party to any decisions about how much money we spent on the election. That was all above my head. And the amount of money we spent for such few votes is such a waste.
Well, well, you were treasurer. People would sort of look to you and say that every penny that is spent, the treasurer has to look at it and have input. Did you have no input at all?
No input at all. I was more of a glorified bookkeeper.
Well, that must have been terribly frustrating for you.
It was. I've also, yeah, never. It's just that the top, one or two people at the top made all the decisions, and there's some fantastic people within Advance UK that I felt should have been included more in the strategy and decision making, but we were never asked.
So there'll be others, and they've been on the show. You know, we've had a number of people from all sorts of political parties come on the show. I always think it's the best way to get the answers directly from the horse's mouth, if you like. Who are the good people who are being sidelined?
I'm not really going to get into names and he said this and she said that. I don't really want to get into that, Andrew. And but there's still some very, very good people there left in Advance. And for me, there the so-called right, I just call it patriotic, freedom-loving people that want the best for our country. These fragmented parties, UKIP, Nick Tanconi, you've got the Heritage Party, David Curtin, who I've got high regards for. I think we all, and there's elements of reform itself, even the Conservative Party, Katie Lamb and Nick Timothy as well. I think we all of us need to come together in one unit, one political party, and that's got all the momentum at the moment, and that is restore Britain. And everybody needs to come together within that, and instead of fighting these little battles and petty squabbles that are happening on the right.
Well, it is. And this is the thing that always happens when I've had you on the show, I've had Ben on the show, I've had, as you say, Nick Buckley, I've had all sorts of people from other political parties as well. And they all point out the same thing. Firstly, when is Ben and Rupert going to get together? And secondly, aren't you splitting the vote?
Um, Exactly. I know that's what I think is happening. It's too fragmented. We all need to get together on this. I think there's too many egos at stake across these parties. For this and for the sake of our country, I think before I talked about political opportunists jumping ship, and to an extent that is happening, and maybe some people could accuse me of being a political opportunist and jumping ship, but no, I just think that I'm voting with my feet, and I think I've said it for many months now that all these people have got to get together for the sake of our country. Otherwise, we are facing a truly apocalypse. I think we're facing a new dark age. It's that relevant that we all get together. Otherwise, there's going to be a coalition of the Greens, Labour, and the SNP at the next general election, which I don't think will be. I think this Labour government's going to hang on tooth and nail to the last possible moment, July 2029. That's just over 3 years, 36 months, just over 36 months away. The clock is ticking. There isn't time for these little squabbles that have been happening on the right. Let's all get together behind one entity. That one entity that is a well-oiled machine and well run. I've spoke to some very good people within Restore Britain. We all need to join that political party and get behind it. Otherwise, our country is finished.
Well, you say about political opportunists, and you rightly pointed out that's an accusation that would be thrown at you, and in fact has been thrown at you by a number of people. You were sacked by Reform over those infamous low IQ diluting Britons, those tweets. You
I mean,
rose to raise.
just to rewind on that. I mean, you've got a society where there's, a particular IQ. If you import lots of people into that society that have got a lower IQ, these are facts. The average IQ is going to go down. It's going to reduce. If you go on Google and look for the highest IQs, the lowest IQs in the world, this is on average. We're not talking about individual people here. The lowest IQ countries in the world, sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, etc. If you bring in lots of people from those areas with low IQs, these are all facts that are on. They're out there. There's an excellent book I'd recommend anybody to read, The Bell Curve, on this. It has been beyond the pale to even talk about things like this. But I think we need to get this out there and discuss these issues.
Well, I certainly, I always say, Edward, sunlight is the best disinfectant, but also it's backing it up with evidence, because obviously not everybody, this is why it was so offensive to people, not everybody from a particular place has a low IQ.
Yeah. And I've talked about averages and, across countries, but it's all there on the internet. You can research it.
Where does that data come from?
Just IQs that people have done. In America, for instance, there's over 100 years of evidence from the military where they've taken IQ tests, and that's happened all across the world, really, where people have done IQs and put into a big spreadsheet to put all the data down.
So who did the sub-Saharan Africans to say that they have low IQs? Which test was that?
There would be many tests across their education systems and
but can you name a specific one? Because I say I always what I try to avoid are these generalizations, because they're so damning with the generalization. Give me a specific study that revealed that low IQ sub-Saharan Africans were basically diluting Britain. Where's that statistic?
There are many chapters. There's a whole chapter on it in the bell curve, and it details all sorts of evidence on there. I can't cite one particular study, but there are many studies.
Any study at all that references that.
Like I say, the US military.
Okay, well, maybe you can send some links to that, and we can have a look at that. But why would the US military be looking at sub-Saharan Africans?
They've done tests across all their demographics and all the people that have gone in the army. That you have aptitude tests in this country. We through the education system, people have been tested already for their IQ levels.
But that would only apply to, for example, people who were applying to the military, obviously, and those who don't apply, those who might be doctors or lawyers, heaven forbid, or politicians. They may have a much higher IQ.
I mean, we're probably digressing a little bit on IQ here, but I remember when I joined a particular business back in the 1990s, and I had an aptitude test, and that had elements of IQ testing in that.
The reason it's important, Edward, is that, and I think this is something that you and I have discussed, and I've always appreciated your honesty, if you like, about your views. I may not support those views, but I think it's important that you air those without being castrated, if you like. What you're basically saying is that you do not regret a single word of those original comments. Is that fair?
I think facts are not racist. I'm just talking about generalities and averages of countries and IQ levels.
So do you see Restore Britain as that sort of no baggage rocket where you can finally shout those views from the rooftops without party machinery basically castrating you as Reform did?
Yeah, from the people that I've talked to already, and people that have setting up branches, and very much about free speech. And I'm never, I may not be right on some of these ideas. And let's have a debate. Let's talk about these issues, and they should be out there in the open. When I was with the early days of reform, it was a very much a grassroots party and very much about free speech, but that's been eroded over time, and now it's a very centralized political party that you have to toe the line. You can't deviate from the script whatsoever. You can't even make suggestions. Everything has to be by the book, and a lot of the people are in straitjackets within that party.
But you're saying similar problem with Advance now, so it's the same. It's led by a.
Advance, no, we were, fine. We could. There was free speech. We could talk about issues and debate them, but everything was decided from the very top, really.
I thought you were telling me that you were frustrated that you weren't consulted and you couldn't debate it because there are a few strong individuals at the top.
No, all the decisions were made at the top, and then that was it. Strategy was just made by a couple of people at the top. That was it.
Right. So you weren't really part of those discussions. It was the same problem as with reform.
Glorified bookkeeper in a lot of ways.
And but not just frustrating, but humiliating for you.
I wouldn't say humiliating. I was great to be part of it. It was a great movement. So much respect for Ben Habib. He's a super intelligent man, highly articulate, some great ideas. But I feel that other people should have been involved in the decision making, and it should have been much more of a team effort.
So tell me then about the conversation you must have been having with Ben along those lines over the several months that I've known you as part of the party. Talk to me about some of those conversations and what was his response?
I just got on with it. I kept my head down and did the bookkeeping really.
But when you turn round to him and say, look, I'm just a glorified bookkeeper, I do want to have input, I have a responsibility. When people say I'm treasurer, they're going to assume that I know what's going on and I approve of what's happening. What did he say when you raised those issues with him?
I'll give you a particular example. There was a candidate that I know very well, and more out of loyalty, this candidate was selected, and I knew a lot about this candidate, and I put my concerns to senior people about this. But I was completely overlooked, and the candidate was taken on board anyway. I don't believe any real vetting was actually done. It was just out of loyalty.
So candidates being taken on without proper vetting, it's something which
I mean,
reform.
I don't know that he may have been vetted, but a lot of things were seriously overlooked, and I had big reservations about this particular decision, and I made them clear, but nobody, I was completely ignored.
Well, you're obviously people are going to look at the different candidates and say, well, Edward supported some but not others. Who was that candidate?
I'm not going to name names, but I'm just citing that as a particular example, Andrew.
Okay. And what, just so we can get the reality, what did you object to? You haven't named the name, but what did you object to about this particular candidate?
The particular candidate's history, and I knew about his lack of communication skills, and I voiced all this. His business background and the local knowledge about this particular person, and was completely overlooked.
And they've been hemorrhaging, is probably the right word, a number of people who have been previous supporters. Why has that been?
Sorry, Advance have been.
Yeah, they've been hemorrhaging members. There's all very public spats. You look at Wales, you look at some of the bigger characters, if you like, who are sort of turning around and saying, "Well, I want nothing more to do with it." They go to social media to air their grievances.
Just to put that into bite-sized chunks. Wales again. I got on really well with Richie and Rogue, the two people that Ben had given carte blanche to promote Wales and promote Advance within Wales, and they were doing a hell of a job. up and down Wales, which is no mean feat to get from North to South Wales, is quite a big task, really, and getting around and meeting lots of people. They work their socks off meeting and greeting, and for them to be unceremoniously dumped out of the party, which again, I don't know why they were dumped. They were doing a great job. They weren't everybody's cup of tea, and but in the main, they did a fantastic job. Nothing but admiration for Richard Thompson. So Richard Taylor and Rowe.
Richard Thompson's the chairman. That's right.
He
That's
is,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
a Freudian slip
Too many
there.
dicks.
A Freudian slip, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Richie had so much charisma. This is Richard Taylor had so much charisma. I've been witness to some fantastic speeches that he'd given. Energized so many people, and to be dumped out of the party and then to be replaced by the person he was replaced by was, credible person and from all accounts, a hard-working person, but he didn't have the charisma that Richie had. Why take several steps back in Wales? Just it just was crazy, really.
So
From
why
my
did they take several steps back? You must have heard about it internally, even if you weren't part of the decision. You must have aired your views.
I wasn't. No, I didn't air my views. Nobody asked for my opinion on it, and it was decisions were made above me on that.
So what was the reason? Because when you talk about this, and as I say, Ben always advocates that it's a fantastic democratic system. You consult the members, you've got the college there, and so on and so forth. You're saying that's all just a sham, and the reality of that doesn't happen. What was the
It's a
real
nice
reason?
idea, and it sounds great, all this democracy and everything else, but it almost doesn't work. And it's the same in business and anything. You can't have a talking shop, and you can't have a massive debating society and having everybody's opinion talked, allowed to talk. Otherwise, you'd be talking and debating forever, and nothing would ever
No,
get
but
done.
that sounds like an argument for not consulting you. I mean, that's a very different point. Of course, it takes an eternity, and you're not going to get everybody's opinion. But those at the top, those who have positions such as treasurer, should certainly be consulted. And what you're telling me, quite shockingly, is that just didn't happen.
It didn't. No, it's like I say, there's one or two people at the very top that decided everything, really.
Okay. So Wales, as you say, this decision was made without your input. What was the reason given?
I mean, in fairness, it was probably nothing to do with me. I'm not there to select candidates, and surely but I should be allowed to have an input in these things. And I'm not there to sack people. The Welsh, Ritchie and Rogue in Wales, I'm not there to sack those people. So, in fairness, the money side of it was looking after the books and making sure everything it was done properly with the Electoral Commission. That was my kind of remit. So in fairness, I wouldn't expect to be asked about that, but you'd think you would have been included in the conversation at least.
Oh no, absolutely. So what was the reason? What was the reason everybody was told?
There was no. I don't think I've never been told of a reason really. I've heard. I think a new person came into the party and wanted to do things that his particular way, and that superseded Wales, and that's what happened really. And that new person that came into the party was promoted over Richard Taylor.
But you say they wanted to do it in a particular way. What was the specific differences then between how Taylor was doing it and how this new person wanted to do it?
I think it was the new person wanted complete control over everything. I think Richard Taylor had been given by Ben carte blanche to run Wales, and maybe there was a difference of opinions over how it should proceed.
But were there specific policies? I mean, I want to do this on local issues. I want to do this on immigration. I want to have this view on welfare. Were there policy issues? Because Ben was at pains at that event in central London to set out the policy, which gave the impression from the stage, a packed hall, if you like, turning around and saying, look, this is what we've discussed. Here are very, very clear policies. Are you saying that there's basically fragmentation in the party that didn't support those policies, and there was a conflict between Wales and this new person you mentioned?
Not at all, no. And again, I'm the treasurer. I'm there to look after the money side of things. I'm not there to get involved in recruitment and things like that. So that wasn't part of my remit at all. And the policies that they came up with at that London conference that we were both at, I thought were fantastic. I thought um, superb policies on immigration, and I looked at Restore's policy on this, and there's virtually no difference. Douglas Carswell did a fantastic report on the how to implement these policies and get them through government and get them onto the statute books, which Restore have copied and developed and put it into their own policy, and we're all very similar. Advance have got the same ideas, really. So we're all very similar. That's why I say that all of us need to come together.
Yeah, and it's going back. You're absolutely right. And Ben used the phrase when I put it to him on the Andrew Eborn Show about the policies and the difference. He said, "Look, there's a cigarette paper between them," and we look at the policies in a moment. But I just to dig down on this Welsh bit, because you say that somebody came in, somebody new who didn't like what Richard was doing. And it was a difference on policy. So what I don't get is how there can be that difference when Ben so clearly set out what those policies are.
It wasn't on policies at all. I don't think it was to do with that. It was just how Wales was going to go forward, and Wales was going to be a part of the national setup, and maybe there were differences over that. I'm speculating. I don't know.
So they didn't give the reason at all, even though you're a vital part of it or were a vital part of the organisation. Nobody knew the reason why Richie went.
He did keep us all guessing for a while and talked about personal reasons, but then I think he's elaborated on this. But yeah, I think just differences over how Wales was going to be run. I think that was the the new person wanted to change things around, and Richie'd been given the go ahead to do Wales himself and his own way, and he did it. He was brilliant at it. So just differences, just differences how it was going to be factored into to Advance UK.
But look at those specific differences though, because if you're saying the policies were the same as outlined at that London event, but the implementation, you say, well, is that what you're talking about? There was a difference
No, I
around the
think
implementation?
I think Richie and Rogue were dismissed from Wales, although they resigned from the Welsh post way before the conference in February, and those particular announcements.
But so what? But again, you're saying it wasn't over policy, but about implementation.
I think so, yeah. New national manager wanted to do things his particular way, and that didn't fit into to how Richie'd been agreed with Ben that Wales would be run.
So it's basically Richard Thompson, is that who we're talking about?
Um, but he would have needed backing from Ben and
No, sure, but Richard, it's public knowledge. I mean, Richard was brought in. He had a view as to how
I
things
don't know that this is all private, personal conversations, I have not been party to these. I'm just talking from the outside, looking in, really,
yeah.
and I don't believe Richard Thompson would have had. He wouldn't have done this on his own. I think he would have had. Perhaps he might have been a fall guy. I don't know. He might have been told to do this. There might have been a change of thought right at the top of the party on how to structure Wales. Who knows? I've not been party to any of those discussions whatsoever.
Right. So it's sort of speculation, if you like, but there was a difference as opinion as to how Wales should be run.
I think in the end that's what it boils down to, Andrew.
Okay. The other thing is obviously, which again is hitting the headlines, is the relationship between Rupert and Ben. We've had a series of leaked conversations, private WhatsApp messages, and so on and so forth, saying he's gone full a tilt racist. I think was what one of the quotes that was leaked. What's
I
the
mean,
current
this term
relationship?
racist, I just think it is the most overused word in the English language. 20 years ago, it used to mean something. But, when we've had these government agencies saying that the countryside's racist because there isn't a diversity in the paintings, old masters of paintings are racist because it doesn't depict any diversity. History I mean, everything, a blackboard or a black coffee, so this is racist because what on earth are we, what on earth have we become? I just think free speech has just been eroded all over. And
And
racist
you
is
and
just
you and I
another
you and
means
I
to
we
close down the conversation.
I know absolutely, and as you know, I dislike labels which are basically used to shut down debate. But this was not talking about that. That was a general thing. It was used by Ben. It was his voice. He didn't deny it. It was on a central WhatsApp message group, and he was talking about Restore going full tilt racist. That those were Ben's words.
Yeah, I heard that as well, and it's not language that I would have ever bandied about. I think it's just pretty poor, really. I think um, I'm like you. I just think we should be debating these issues instead of bandying about trying to close down the conversation, accusing people of racism. I think it's quite petty, really.
No, I absolutely. We've got to look at the issues without the labels. And jaw, not war. Shutting down debate has got to be wrong. And I think that's what you and I've always talked about. It's sort of a unifying position. We may disagree on what it is, but you have a debate about it so people
Yeah.
can make informed decisions. That's the idea of getting experts and evidence-based assertions and so on and so
It's
forth.
it's hilarious, Andrew. On X, for instance. It can be quite toxic at the best of times. But, when you get people accusing you of being a fascist because you said a particular thing or you believe in a particular thing and calling you a fascist. I mean, do these people even know what a fascist is or a Nazi, a National Socialist? I'm very much a free market and a small government and very low taxation. There's the complete opposite of being a Nazi or a fascist, and having a government that controls everything from the centre. And National Socialism is still, is a socialist entity. The Nazis controlled everything from the centre. That's the complete opposite. So these people just bandying about these things without even knowing what the meaning of them are. I mean, it's just that's how the argument has degenerated really in some quarters.
I saw your response to when you made the announcement that you'd left Ben and joined Rupert, and that was one of the comments they talked about. Well, it's not far right enough for you, you're becoming a fascist. So you responded to that and you put it into context. But again, those labels don't help, do they?
I think they do help. I think it's a badge of honor now. I think, the
What, to be a
man on the Clapham
fascist?
Omnibus and people down the pub will want, they want politicians to talk about these issues. They don't want them to shy away. At the last general election, 40% of the electorate didn't bother voting. And I'm willing to speculate a lot of that is because they're fed up with these politicians not talking about issues that concern,
Well, no,
average
I
normal
always say
people.
apathy is always the winner in these elections, and we have to restore trust in politicians. And I always say trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. That's what we need to do is trust.
But
But just be
I can
clear,
understand that apathy
yeah.
because we've had a uni party for decades. The Conservative and Labour parties have followed pretty much the same line on all the major issues of the day. But now we have a real choice. We've got Restore Britain, my party that I'm fully backing, reform to an extent, although I agree with Elon Musk that they're a weak source and they're watering everything down and they're almost reverting back to uniparty policies. But there is a definite choice now for people. And of course the Green Party. Great result in Gorton and Denton, and they really motivated the Islamic population of that area to go out and vote for them. So people have got real choices now. There's not just the Uni Party.
Yeah. Just to be clear on something which you said just a moment ago, and I want to clarify because it's quite a statement. You're not saying being called a fascist is a badge of honor, are you?
No, I just think it's petty, and it's the
So
complete.
when you talked about a badge of honor, what were you talking about the badge of honor? Just be clear on that.
Um, if people have taken the trouble to call you a fascist, you're obviously doing something right, and you're discussing the great issues of the day. And to call somebody a fascist or a Nazi, it's just to try and close down the conversation. I'm happy to debate with somebody if they want to call me a fascist. Let's debate what their definition of a fascist actually is, and
Okay. So
and then
the
I'll
badge.
demonstrate.
So just to be
And
clear
I'll
on this, the
demonstrate
badge
I'm
of
the
honor.
exact opposite.
Yeah, the badge of honor that you're talking about is the fact that you've got the debate started, or you've got people sufficiently riled that they throw labels at you.
You've got notice, you're in the headlines, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about the relationship between Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe. And we're also going to be digging a bit deeper into those policies. But for now, Edward, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Edward Oakenfull. I've just joined Restore Britain because I believe that one particular party is the future for our country. I'm here to discuss with Andrew Eborn on his excellent show. Please like and subscribe, become a member as well, and you'll get access to early interviews and listen to some fascinating people discussing with Andrew. Thank you.